Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors get a 119-101 victory over the Charlotte Hornets at Spectrum Center on Monday. Not the most ideal game. Obviously, the biggest factor getting the win was there for the Warriors, an 18-point comfortable enough victory in the end, at least in the fourth quarter. But a few injury concerns. Obviously, play the Knicks tomorrow at Madison Square Garden, so all eyes kind of focus on what's going to happen there and who's going to be available for the Warriors. But most importantly, they get this win, and that allows them to move up officially to the 6th seed in the Western Conference, surpassing the LA Clippers. Going into this game, there was half a game between the Clippers in 6th and the Dallas Mavericks in 10th. Now, those standings will change a little bit. Obviously, the Warriors move past the Clippers now into 6th. The Mavericks are currently playing the Kings, who are also obviously part of that jumbled group together in between 6 and 10 in the conference. So we'll wait and see what happens over the last, 20 minutes left of that game. Basically 8:30 left in the third quarter. The Kings are up 14. But yeah, the Warriors get the win. Few injury concerns. Mavs had it close. It was a kind of frustrating game through the first practically 3 quarters. Sorry, did I say the Mavs? I meant the Hornets. The Hornets had it close. It was a frustrating game. The Warriors really led by Buddy Hield, it must be said. I know Buddy gets a lot of dislike in this chat and through Warrior fans in general, but got to give credit where credit is due with his performance in this one. Really broke the game open, I think, late in that third quarter, early fourth quarter with a series of threes. Ended up with a team high 22 points, 8 of 14 shooting, 5 of 9 from three-point range in this game. So it was really him that broke the game open after, again, the Hornets got within 2 in the third quarter. A couple of technical fouls against Steve and Draymond. There was a 7-point play there where LaMelo hit a 3. Draymond gave up a flagrant 1 foul, went to the line, made 1, so that was 4, and then the Hornets got the ball back and LaMelo hit another 3. It was like a 7-point play, and it was like, whoa, okay, this game's just getting super, super annoying really at this stage. And then Buddy kind of led that surge late third, opened up a little bit more of a break. And then the Warriors really, they led the whole game. This game was kind of in control, but it also was under threat a little bit. It felt like, the Hornets could make a run there and potentially steal the game. But Golden State thankfully made it to a point where they were able to rest their guys over the last 2 to 3 minutes. Basically, and the game was never in doubt from the final, really, 7-8 minutes of that fourth quarter. So not too much to be taken away from the game necessarily, given that it's the Hornets and they suck. That's their 7th straight loss. Of course, in that span, they had the worst 3-game stretch in NBA history, which the Warriors completed when they beat them by 36 last Tuesday. So not too much can be taken from it, I don't think. It's just a good, solid win. Obviously, the injuries are going to be a big watch. So Steph tweaked his ankle on a closeout on a Nick Smith Jr. 3 in the second quarter. Was hobbling around somewhat badly, but played through it and played out the rest of the game. Had a 21-point, 10-assist, double-double. They kind of guarded Steph in a very similar manner to what the 76ers did on Saturday, which meant that he didn't see a lot of shot attempts himself. But I just loved how he didn't try and force things too much with his own shooting, his own scoring. He playmate for others. Again, 9 assists in the first half. We saw a lot as a result of Pod's open threes, Buddy, obviously. Draymond took 16. I think Draymond led the Warriors in field goal attempts in this game. No, Pods did. Pods was 6 of 16, 4 of 11. Pods got 11 three-point attempts up. And they're all like legitimately wide open, really. Draymond was 6 of 15 in this game, had 16 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. So Draymond did a little bit of everything without being overly efficient. And then we had Pods obviously talking about his reasonable game, 19 points, 10 rebounds, couple of assists, couple of steals. But he had what looked like a knee injury in the third quarter, hobbled off, went down to the locker room, did come back and play though, and had a couple of big threes in that fourth quarter, which helped to extend the margin. Then you had GP2, who I want to give some credit to GP2. I've been kind of, for a long time saying this guy probably shouldn't be in the rotation, but he's been really good. Like, I feel like his offense has taken a bit of a boost here over the past few games. I think he had double digits on Saturday against the 76ers. He had, what did he have in this game in the end? 9 points in 10 minutes on 4 of 7 shooting, made a 3, a couple of rebounds. So a couple of nice finishes at the rim. I feel like his offense is starting to come around. Obviously never going to be respected from 3-point range. But it was unfortunate to see him go down a pretty heavy, brutal collision with LaMelo Ball head on head there. And looks like, I'm assuming he might have a broken nose or something like that, which means, I don't know what, like, you can play through a broken nose, wear a mask. We'll wait and see on that one, but he didn't return to the game after that incident in the third quarter. Jimmy Butler returned from his absence against the 76ers on Saturday. Didn't look 100%, I don't think. Like, he's still trying to work his way into it physically. I know Warrior fans are getting a little bit frustrated with his lack of aggression in hunting his own shot. At the end of the day, like, you win this game by 18, I feel like there's not too much necessarily to argue or be critical of there. But I do feel some of that frustration. Like, he took 7 shot attempts in this game. And then when you look at Pods taking 16, Draymond taking 15, Buddy taking 14, you got to wonder, okay, what's going on there? Jimmy did get back to the free throw line 6 times, went a perfect 6 of 6, 13 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. Just one of those games where I guess he made his teammates better again, but his own individual impact hasn't quite been there the last couple of games. The Warriors haven't necessarily needed. Obviously, they really missed him on Saturday against the Sixers, but they're now 8-1 with Jimmy Butler since his arrival. So there's very little to complain about. And if anything, I suppose the lack of aggression and the lack of scoring somewhat, like he's averaging like around 16 points a game at the moment. We know that could rise. So that's probably, a good thing for the Warriors moving forward here, that Jimmy Butler should only get better, and therefore they should only get better over the final. What do we got? Like 20 games, 21 games left of the season or whatever it is. Just get into some of your guys' comments here. Robbie says, rough start with GP2 going down, but 3 Warriors with double-doubles is good to see. Yeah, Steph had 21 and 10 assists. Pods had 19 and 10 rebounds. And Draymond had 16 and 13 rebounds, 6 assists as well. So a big stat line for Draymond. Then next says, refs controlled too much of this game. First 3 quarters did not happen. Happy we woke up in the fourth. Yeah, the third quarter was a pretty tough watch. Plenty of whistles. Both teams kind of got into the bonus relatively early. We had a couple of tees. We had the flagrant 1 foul on Draymond. So there was plenty going on from a whistle standpoint, a refereeing standpoint. So it was very frustrating, and I feel like maybe the Warriors have matured a little bit. Some of the refereeing decisions that went against them in that third quarter, a previous version of Golden State may have let that frustration get to them and affect their performance and, end up with a surprise loss to the Hornets. Fortunately, as you say, they woke up probably late third. I think Buddy gave them a bit of a jolt there late third, and then early fourth, they kind of ran away with it and once again made sure that this wasn't really a close game down the stretch. FTW Clan says, glad we got the win, but we also got banged up and it wasn't as smooth as I would have liked. Yeah, certainly not smooth at all. I feel like if you just didn't watch the game and you saw the box score and you saw the Warriors won by 18, you'd be like, yeah, okay, that was comfortable enough. It wasn't really comfortable through the first 3 quarters. And I think, again, the biggest thing was the injury concerns with GP2 exiting the game, and then Steph and Pods having some issues that could be more problematic, I suppose, after the game. Like, I know from, again, not to compare myself to professional athletes, but, these injuries, like the ankle knee injury, it's one thing to play through it while you've got adrenaline running through your body. Playing the rest of the game out is, you're capable of doing that, but how you are in the day after and the days following, that can be a different story. I know for me personally, playing a game of Australian rules football, the grand final back when I was 17 at the time, and first quarter fractured my patella in my right knee, or what resulted as a fractured patella in my right knee. Played out the rest of the game. Was very, very sore when I first did it, and then I kind of ran it out and actually played okay and was fine the rest of the game. And then I remember waking up the next morning and I was in agony. Like, I couldn't walk, and I was like, geez, I've done something reasonably serious here. And then ended up going to the doctors, getting x-rays, and sure enough, fractured patella. So it's one of those things, again, I played out the game okay, but afterwards, the day after, didn't really help in the fact that I got on the beers that night. Not that I should be admitting that, given I was 17 at the time, but it didn't help in terms of the recovery, I don't think. And these guys, obviously, with access to the best medical recovery facilities in the world. Hopefully Steph and Pods will be right to go by tomorrow against the Knicks, obviously, but we'll wait and see on that. Steve did say before the game that he doesn't plan on resting any of the veteran players against the Knicks. The Warriors obviously trying to win it every game they can here. So, again, we'll have to wait and see based on some of the injury concerns we've seen in this game. Then Nick says, Rockets losing, we could get the 5th and avoid Denver, so we'll get Memphis. Yes, OKC currently up 126-117 against the Rockets, 4:23 to play. So you'd think the Thunder will go on and win. The Rockets still half a chance, 9 points, 4.5 minutes. It's doable, but unlikely, which means, again, I think, what would that make the Rockets, like 3 or 4 games ahead of the Warriors, I think? So you are right. Like, they've got the 6th seed. They need to make sure they keep winning to, they're certainly not out of the woods. Like, there's teams still coming up behind them. The Clippers are going to be there. We'll see what happens tomorrow, obviously, against the Knicks. If the Warriors lose, then they could be back down to 7-8. The Kings are around the mark at the moment. The Mavericks seem to be falling off a cliff. Kyrie got injured in the first quarter of this game today. So, to me, the Mavericks aren't really a threat at the moment. It really comes down to the Clippers, the Timberwolves, and the Kings. Kings, they're fighting. I'm not sure I'm necessarily too worried about them. It's probably more so the Timberwolves out of the 3, I think, because they actually are the only team in the West to have an easier schedule than the Warriors over the remainder of the season. A few more comments from you guys here. Sorry, Robbie says Pods and Moody got to get their threes back in rhythm. I mean, Pods goes 4 of 11, 36.4%. I suppose the issue is here that these are wide open ones. Like, he's 36.4% for the game, which is, like, that's fine. Because if you just say that Pods shoots 36.4% on the season, you kind of take that. But the issue is, like, so many of these are wide open, and Steph and Jimmy are creating so much space for him to be able to operate that he's going to get a lot of these threes, particularly come playoff time as well. And you would like him to take perhaps more advantage on these wide open ones. Moody was just 1 of 6, 0 of 2. Didn't really get much run in the second half, played just 21 minutes. Kind of Steve preferred Buddy Hield, who played over 31 minutes in this game, which was, I think, Pods played the most, then Buddy Hield. Guy Santos also played over 19 minutes off the bench. So Moody, not really his game. 5 points, 5 rebounds, kind of broke the streak of double-digit scoring that he's on. What is it? I don't know what it's up to now. He's like 18 of the last 21 or something in double figures. Anyway, doesn't really matter. Robbie says the fact the team does good with Jimmy taking so few shots is good to see. Want him to be a little more aggressive, though. Yeah, you certainly want to see more aggressive, but as you say, I think it's an optimistic, good thing, I suppose, that the Warriors have won 8 out of 9 games with him, and yet he's averaging only 16 points. We know come playoff time he could get that up well over 20. FTW Clan says, literally can't wait to inject Kuminga's offense back into the lineup. You can tell how much we still need it when Curry's off the floor and Jimmy isn't being aggressive. Totally agree with that. So, I don't know. The latest on JK seems like Saturday at home against the Pistons, but we're getting to a point here where I'll believe it when I see it. Like, I'll believe that Jonathan Kuminga is back when I actually see him on the court warming up, like, ready to play. He's active on the injury report, because otherwise this thing just continues to get pushed back. It's incredibly frustrating. FTW Clan said, that's right, that was what you just said. Berserk Monk, do we just throw away tomorrow's Knicks game with multiple players banged up? It's Draymond's birthday. Maybe just throw in the G League and take the L. I don't think so. You've got a day break after that, and then you face the Nets. So, I don't know. I can see the reasoning behind it, but I just think, like, every game means so much more now. Like, the standings are so close. There's only, 21 games left or whatever it is. Like, I don't think you can afford to. I really don't. So, if these guys are legitimately injured, like if Steph's ankle's like legitimately no good, Jimmy's got the back spasms or whatever, if you're legitimately injured, then don't force your way through it. But I don't think you would rest them just for resting's sake. Jay Talk says Jimmy needs to show out tomorrow or we're absolutely cooked. Yeah, it's a good point. It's one thing for him to be not aggressive in a game against the Hornets where you're probably going to win anyway. So it doesn't really matter. But I think it's just for these games against better opposition where it's like, hang on, we're actually going to really need Jimmy Butler to go for 20, 25 plus here in order to win. FTW Clan says tomorrow's games are going to be really tough back-to-back against a big physical team. Curry banged up, Pod's banged up, GP2 out most likely, and Jimmy doesn't seem fully right either. Yeah, it'll be tough. Be very tough, but fingers crossed. Here we go. Thaneka says, do you think TJD should play? Well, TJD got 152 of garbage time minutes there at the end. Look, I thought Loon and Post were okay again. Like, I just don't see... I just don't see how he can surpass one of those two guys in the rotation. I just don't. Now, some of you guys have been calling for him to get minutes over Looney. Looney's just never really going to be a DNP because he's just reliable. Like, Steve just loves him. We can argue it as much as we want, but I just don't think it's going to happen. So there's no real point talking about it. Really, TJD's only way, I think, of getting back in the rotation is through an injury, or... like the only other way is if he goes down to the G League and has like a few game stretch where he puts up really big numbers, gets back to being his confident, impactful self on both ends of the floor, and maybe puts his hand up that way. Because at the moment he's just stapled to the bench and he can't put his hand up. Like he can't push his case to get back into the rotation. Like he's literally just pitch and hold into, well, if we get an injury or something. Like he might play. I'm not even sure he'd play tomorrow. Like, Looney and Post will most likely still be available tomorrow, so I don't see it. MUYFAE Space says the Dubs need someone that can shoot from the guard spot would be game over. Well, Buddy Hield can shoot sometimes. He can sometimes shoot. The guy's made, as Fitz like to point out in the broadcast in this game, he's made the most threes in the league over the last 5 years or whatever, since 2019. So, Buddy Hield can shoot sometimes, and when he's on like he was in this one, 5-9 from 3, then that's very helpful and can actually be a game-winning aspect for you. Like you'd say, Buddy Hield almost won the Warriors the game with his kind of surge of scoring late third, early fourth. But unfortunately, that's not very consistent, and so you would like someone who's more consistent from that spot. Athenic says Mavs down 28. Yes, 89-61 Kings. Mavericks are in real trouble. Berserk Monk says Curry got hurt real bad. His knee folded weirdly while he was going up for a shot. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. You don't want to see the best players going down. Hopefully Kyrie's okay. But it's, the Mavericks are in a tough spot right now with AD already out, Lively, Gafford. They've got no centers, basically. If you look at their rotation at the moment, just clicking on this game, their rotation at the moment is a disaster, really. So their starters are Kyrie, who, again, played less than 10 minutes, got injured. Dante Exum, who Dante's fine as a role player. Like, as an Australian, I love Dante, but when you ask him to do more than what he should be, then he's not really cut out for that. Dwight Powell's their starting center, makes me want to vomit. Kessler Edwards is their starting power forward, makes me want to vomit. Clay, who's taken 3 shots in this game, is 1 of 3, and he's a minus 32. Clay Thompson, not great. Then off the bench, Max Christie, fine, good player. Najee Marshall, fine, okay. But then like Kai Jones, really just signed him to a 2-way deal. Spencer Dinwiddie, 0 of 9 from the floor in this game. Jaden Hardy, Omax, don't love it. I tell you what, their decision to, Caleb Martin's injured at the moment. Their decision to trade Quentin Grimes for him. I know Grimes, I don't think did much today after his 44 piece against the Warriors. Of course the guy would just go back to, did he even get to double figures in this game? What did Quentin Grimes have? He got to 14. 14, 6 and 9 assists. So he was okay. They lost by 17 though, which is disappointing. That was in Philly too. Portland beat Philly by 17 in Philly. Makes the Warrior loss all the more disappointing. The Warriors should be on a 7-game winning streak right now. And then if they win Saturday's game against Philly, then you could probably put your hand up and say, maybe you would rest your key guys tomorrow against the Knicks because you'd feel better about that. But now, because they lost that game, they kind of got to make up for it a little bit. Robbie says, I've been patient with the JK injury, but it has been so long. Yeah, it was January 4, so we're literally coming up on 2 months, a full 2 months, which, yeah, it's weird. Very weird. Robbie says, it makes me hope the injury isn't bad enough to hurt his game. Yeah, I suppose the idea is that, okay, we're just going to, like, we're going to make sure he's, like, fully 110% right to go and that he can just come back and be really impactful from the outset. But at the same time, you also want a period here late in the season where he can be reintegrated. And we've got to remember, like, he obviously hasn't played alongside Butler. The other aspect is that he hasn't played alongside Quentin Post, who's now a kind of important part of the rotation and gives Kuminga hopefully another element to his game with the ability to stretch the floor, hopefully take his defender out of the paint and let Kuminga work on the interior. So it's going to be fascinating to see. Han Solo says, we can't be comfortable with this 6 seed. I have a feeling they're going to lose. I mean, we'd certainly be underdogs tomorrow against the Knicks, no doubt about that. But the schedule beyond that is still reasonable. Obviously, the Nets, you'd think, would get the win there on Thursday. And then the Pistons on Saturday, which the Pistons are good. The Pistons could legit beat the Warriors, but I think Golden State, assuming they're healthy enough, would go in favourites. So the schedule is still reasonable. At this point now, we've got hold of the 6th seed and there's still over 20 games remaining. Like, I'd be disappointed if they don't remain there. And potentially, as someone said before, like, they could get up to the Rockets, who have officially lost to the Thunder 137-128. Splashes Clay says, I couldn't catch the game. What happened to GP3? GP2, he took a head collision with LaMelo Ball and I'm assuming might have broke his nose. I'm assuming. Plenty of blood coming out. Was down on the floor for quite some time. So, again, like, maybe he's okay. Like, I doubt he'll play tomorrow, but in terms of long-term, you can play with a broken nose. Pods did it earlier in the season when he copped a hit to the head. So, yeah, we'll wait and see. Jay Talk says, if the training staff can help TJD develop a layup, he'd be one of our best players. Or just go up and dunk everything. I think he's, like, kind of lacked confidence this season. Remember when he dunked on Wemby last season, when he blocked Giannis multiple times in a quarter against the Bucks? Like, just doesn't seem to be playing with that same force. And as a result, like, a lot of the things I feel like he would have dunked last season, he's taking layups, and you're right, like, he can't make layups, so it's a problem. Berserk Monk says the Blazers locked up the Sixers. Robert says, without Butler, Warriors seem depleted. I wouldn't say depleted, but they're obviously worse, and that's no surprise. Like, you should have to rely on your $50+ million player, and that's kind of the problem with Butler being, if and when Butler does miss games, is that obviously you're going to feel the effect of that. Okay, he's a $50+ million player. Anytime you're missing that caliber of play, you hope that you're missing quite a bit because that would mean that guy is really good and he's worth the $50+ million. So that's something, but it also went to show on Saturday, like, the offense when Steph's off the floor becomes a real problem. And it's going to be a problem because Jimmy hasn't played more than 65 games since like 2016, 17. It's been nearly 10 seasons since he played more than 65 games. So he's going to inevitably miss time. Red Sox says, what do you think Jimmy does that makes Pods play instantly better? I think he just gets him good looks, right? And I think Pods, at this stage of his career, like, he can handle the ball, he can play make a little bit for you, but I think I actually prefer him off the ball because he does, like, he finds himself wide open from beyond the arc. Like, he gets the good spots and he cuts really well. Like, he just knows where to be. Like, really high IQ player. Jimmy's a really high IQ player, and I think those two guys work really well together as a result of that. Robert says reliable secondary scorer. Pods as pass first guard. He wasn't in this game. He took 16 shot attempts and 11 threes. He's going to take them when they're open, but I agree with you. You don't want that ideally from a Warrior standpoint, and Jimmy's got to be that reliable second scorer. Kuminga still to come back, which is what I'm excited about because, again, a game like this, Steph, Jimmy, the defenses load up on them, and it's like, okay, Draymond, Pods, Hield, there's a lot of those three guys, which fine. It worked in this game. You won by 18, but it's also the Hornets. They suck. Against a good team, if you're having Draymond, Pods, and Buddy Hield combined for, 45 shot attempts, the other team's living with that, right? You can almost say like Charlotte defensively actually were probably pretty happy with what they did. It's just their offense was no good. Turned the ball over quite a bit. That was really the difference in the game. Like the Warriors finally got going late from three. They started at 9 of 35. They then made 9 of their last 15 from deep. Again, Buddy, a big part of that. Warriors committed 9 less turnovers, which I think is an important thing to recognize with Jimmy as well. Like him coming into the lineup. Yes, he's not necessarily looking for his own shot, but he's still getting to the free throw line a heap. Warriors are actually making their free throws, which is weird because, obviously Jimmy's a great free throw shooter, but it seems like his presence also makes guys shoot better from the line, which doesn't make any sense, but whatever. And then obviously the turnovers, like his ball security is really good. He doesn't turn the ball over willy-nilly. So there's factors there that are helping the Warriors to be much better with Jimmy, even though he's not necessarily scoring a bunch of points himself. Robbie says the Knicks aren't good against good teams, so hopefully we can have some luck, even though we aren't the favorites. Yeah, I'm not saying we're going to roll over and lose easily. Like I think it's a winnable game. It's just obviously second night of a back-to-back with the injury concerns from this game. It's going to be difficult. Priscilla says, hopefully no concussion protocol for GP2 and it's just a broken nose. Yeah, fingers crossed. How is it a week? What's the concussion protocol in the NBA? I know it's a big thing for us in Australian rules football, and I don't know if it's extended now. It was I think it's a 10-day break in Australian rules football. You get a concussion, you're out for 10 days. And usually that's just one game because we just obviously play on a weekend, but it's a big thing over here and I'm sure you guys probably that follow the NFL, it's probably a big thing for the NFL as well. Obviously you wear helmets in the NFL, AFL, we don't wear any protective gear. So head knocks, concussion are a huge thing and only becoming bigger because we've had former AFL players, basically, not to get too sad and down, but we've had former AFL players commit suicide, 20 years after their career because they face mental health issues and stuff that often which stem from the long-term effects of concussions and stuff like that. So it's a big thing. And if you do get concussed, then it feels like you should be out at least a couple of games in the NBA, I'd imagine. But we'll wait and see what happens with GP2. Han Solo says the Warriors lost to Quentin Grimes, plus it was a game where Steph made his last dunk in the game ever. I have no faith in them tomorrow. Hopefully they prove me wrong. Yeah, look, Saturday was disappointing. It was. Look, they battled hard. I think if you just go back to it, like the minutes when Steph was on the bench in the first half, they struggled mightily, and without Jimmy, like that's going to happen. So again, when you're missing your second and third best scorer, like I feel like it's hard to be too negative about it. Like I was very disappointed with Saturday's loss, but it's also the caveat you're missing Butler and Kuminga. Like it's going to be difficult. Any team is going to struggle without their second and third best scorer and probably two of their top 4 players. If we say Kuminga's like the 4th best player on the team behind Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond. So Berserk Mike says, I just hope Jimmy and Kuminga don't clash since they kind of operate from the same areas of the floor. It's going to be an interesting fit. Interesting, because there's a lot of positivity, a lot of optimism about it at the moment, but I don't think it will necessarily be as seamless as what people make out. But again, time will tell. Red Sox says the Knicks are a gatekeeper team. If we beat them by 20, that sends a message. I don't think we're going to beat them by 20. I think we can beat them, but I'm not sure we can blow them out based on, again, the fact that it's the second night of a back-to-back. Berserkmark says, I saw Westbrook and Christian Brown clash on their cuts during their last game. Even a super elite passer like Jokic couldn't make it work. Yeah, we'll wait and see. Robbie says, GP2 have been playing good alongside Steph, so hopefully he can get a few minutes when JK comes back. Yeah, I've actually been impressed with GP2. More so just like not being a liability on offense the last few games. Like it feels like he's actually cutting to the basket hard, finishing at the basket hard, he took 4 3-point attempts in 10 minutes today. Like, feels like he's taking the wide open ones, which you're a 6'2" guard. You're going to have to do that. You're going to have to take the wide open ones and try and knock them down at a reasonable rate. Now, he's not this season. Like, what's he shooting from three now? Gary Payton the second. So before this game where he went 1 of 4, so he's only 25%. So he's 25, 26% from the season. He needs to get that up. Robert says, is Jimmy playing tomorrow or still day-to-day? We don't know, but unless there's been any, let me just check Twitter. Have we got any updates from Steve Slater? Had anything to say after this game? Let's have a look. Anthony Slater, 23 minutes ago. Gary Payton II had a cut on his nose post-game, but said he'd be fine. Hopes to play tomorrow in New York. Left tonight's game after taking a hit from LaMelo Ball. All right, so fingers crossed, GP2 might be fine. And he might actually play tomorrow, which would be extraordinary, but possible. Like if he just got hit and it wasn't a concussion, and even if there was a slight break in the nose, then maybe he's going to be fine. The Jimmy thing, we'll wait and see. I wouldn't be surprised if he's like a bunch of guys are listed as questionable on the injury report, and then we'll just wait and see, close to the tip-off. Gamer FTP, Jimmy and JK won't clash simply because JK is explosive and loves driving. Yeah, hopefully, like we've seen with Pods and Moody, like Jimmy's just made those guys better. So fingers crossed, the same applies to JK when he returns, hopefully on Saturday against the Pistons. Robert says we will see a Marsh GP2 tomorrow, potentially. Although if it's only a cut, then probably you don't have to, I suppose. Berserkman says, I don't remember Kiminga cutting too often, especially if he knew the play wasn't set up for him. He usually stood in the corner. In terms of standing in the corner, JK's three-point shooting, and I mentioned this before, it's going to be super important with Butler. And Butler's three-point shooting, he made a corner three in this game. He's still only made 2 threes as a Warrior so far. So those guys being able to, make defenses pay when they sag off, because that's going to happen naturally. Those guys hitting a reasonable rate of threes. And Kuminga, in fairness, he's averaged 2 threes on his career in his first 3 years. He's up to 3.6 per game this season. So he's been willing to take them, shooting 35%, which is not horrific, but it's not great either. So that's going to be a big factor, particularly with the kind of lineups that Steve can use moving forward here. Robbie says the Warriors need to get Curry in pick and rolls versus Towns because he's bad at guarding. It plays too much drop coverage. The last games JK played, he started cutting from the corners. He was obviously in career best form prior to injury, which makes it all the more disappointing. But anyway, I'm going to finish it up there. We've been going for just over 32 minutes. The Kings, they're about to beat the Mavericks up 26 with 6.5 minutes to play. The Thunder obviously beat the Rockets. Klay Thompson, 1 of 4 shooting, minus 30 in this game. Not ideal. So updated Western Conference standings at the moment. I'm not sure. I'm going to assume this includes the Rockets' loss, maybe. What are the Rockets on the season now? Rockets. The Houston Rockets are now 37-24. Which means, hang on, I'm trying to find the actual proper standings here that have been updated following the Warriors win and the Rockets loss. Here we go. The Warriors are 4 games back from the Rockets. There is 1 game between the 6th place Warriors and 10th place Mavericks, but that is about to change because the Kings are going to beat the Mavericks. So anyway, guys, we'll wait and see what happens tomorrow. I'll be back for another post-game live episode after that one. Fingers crossed the Warriors can get a win. I'm not overly confident based on what we saw in this game with the injury concerns, but we will wait and see. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POC252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Thanks again to those of you that have been in the chat. Thanks to those of you that are watching on replay or via your podcast feed. The ongoing support is much appreciated. I'll see you guys after the game at MSG tomorrow.